This presentation, titled Management Systems for Remote Audits, comes to us from Chad Kymal. Chad is the CTO and founder of Omnex Inc., an international consulting and training organization headquartered in the United States. He is on the ISO TC 176, ISO TC 207, and PC 283 committees for ISO 9001 2015, Quality Management, ISO 14001 2015, Environmental Management, and ISO 45001, Health and Safety Management Systems. Chad is a certified lead auditor for IATF 16949, ISO 14001, ISO 9001, FSSC 22000, HACCP ISO 45001, and AS 9100. He teaches these and many other courses such as Integrated Management Systems for Omnex. Chad is also the CEO of Omnex Systems, an enterprise quality and IMS software provider. He's also the US expert for the ISO 10013 Documented Information Update. And with that, take it away, Chad.
Mike, thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here for the Online Auditor Expo with Exemplar. Folks, this is going to be somewhere between a 45 minutes and an hour presentation on management systems for remote audits. A little bit before I start, tell you about Omnex. As Mike mentioned, we're headquartered in Ann Arbor, Michigan. We're a global organization in about 15 different parts of the world, and we specialize in all the different standards, including integrated management systems and a variety of, improvement tools. Let me move on. So today, what we're going to do is talk about management systems for remote audits. And moving right on. And, it is a technology presentation where I talk to you about, what kind of features, what kind of interfaces, what kind of software will really benefit both the auditor and what companies can do to set themselves up today in this new world. Here's what we'll do. We'll start out by saying, hey, remote audits are here. It's being accepted pretty widely. Next, we'll move on to documented information and audits. And we'll show you a little demo of how the stage 1 audit can be set up remotely. And this is not futuristic, it is today. We'll talk to you about web-based and cloud-based solutions, the pros and cons of each. Then we'll move on to documented information. How do you organize documentation and what kind of functionality do you need? And then we'll finish up with a subject called electronic workflows. Mike may have mentioned to you, I'm part of the committee and the US expert on ISO 10013 on documented information. And electronic workflows are one kind of documented information that is becoming widely, accepted today, and as a way where you standardize and implement, processes using documented information. So let us start then with the idea of acceptance of remote audits. And bottom line, remote audits are here to stay. How is this defined? In fact, the standards were, 19011 was ahead of itself and defines a remote audit as a systematic, independent, and documented process for obtaining objective audit evidence and compare to audit criteria exclusively using information and communications technology. You'll see this word ICT, and it stands for Information and Communication Technology, which they say camera, software, hardware, internet communications are the way the auditors are going to audit in this remote audit. So it's a remote auditing of a virtual site, which is conducted by the auditor, and this remote site is conducting either performing work or providing a service in this online environment. All right. So, as I mentioned to you, 19011, this is the standard, folks, that we use for auditing all different kinds of audits, from ISO 9001 to 13485 to AS 9100 to IATF 16949. And it says the audit methods could be chosen for the audit based on the objective scope criteria. Okay, so the definition we gave earlier comes from 19011. And today, in this current new normal, we see the IAF coming out with a mandatory document MD4, which gives guidance to registrars and auditors. The scope of this MD4, so you can go look this up in the IAF website, is about the auditing and assessment of management systems, persons, and products. It's applicable for both certification bodies, which are registrars, and the accreditation bodies that oversee registrars. And they say this ICT that we talked about earlier is not mandatory, but if it's used, they'd like it to conform to this IAF mandatory document. And it says the use of ICT for audit purposes have to be mutually agreed upon. We can't spring that on our auditee. The auditing organization needs to accept it. And it says ICT is the use of technology for gathering, storing, retrieving, processing, analyzing, and transmitting information. So what they're saying is that this exchange of information doesn't have to be live. It could be done, stored somewhere where you go and review the data. Of course, that's perfectly okay for stage 1. And maybe okay for some parts of stage 2, but folks, as Omnex today is doing remote audits, we try to do it as a live exchange of data between the auditor and auditee. Even the stage 1 can be done like that. Let's talk about that when we get there. So, and it says use of ICT is appropriate for auditing both locally and remotely. I'll say this, my thoughts are for the next couple of years, this idea of ICT and remote audits just have to happen and will be the way it happens. There will be many organizations that, I already know there are organizations telling their employees to stay at home for the next 1 year. Okay, so just imagine that, and they are just taking a core set of people. When things open up, they'll just have a core set of people inside the company. So invariably, folks, even if you are allowed to step in to this company, your auditees may be remote. Most probably, in terms of reducing their risks, they'll probably want to have the auditor remotely. All right. Examples of the use of ICT: meetings by teleconference, review of documents and records by remote access, recordings of information and evidence, providing visual audio access to remote or potentially hazardous locations. Okay. All right. So this is really some requirements for the auditing body, which is the registrar, to identify and document the risks and opportunities. So you have to think through that overall, the remote auditing process ahead of time, and the registrar working with the auditors need to think it through, put it and make it a part of the process. Ensure that the auditee and auditing organizations have the necessary infrastructure to make sure auditees. So for example, when we're going to do the tour, what kind of a camera are they going to use? Maybe they'll need to do some sort of a rehearsal to make sure they capture the information well. Identify how the ICT will be utilized and the extent it'll be utilized. Indicate in the report, how and where they use the ICT and the effectiveness of it. And it's also, they want it to be noted in the certification documentation. So lots of requirements for the registrar. And other than food and automotive, all other sectors are accepting remote audits today. So I'll just mention to you, I'm not only a lead auditor, but for about 11 to 12 years, I ran a registrar, and till we sold it to one of the other registration organizations. And so very familiar with how registrars run and how management systems of registrars are key and important for the success of the audit. Let's move on now to the second chapter here about documented information and audits. Really, as you all know, in documented information 7.5, there are two types of documented information: retained and maintained. When we say maintained, we mean documents, and these are documents that are reviewed prior to the audit as part of the stage one. And of course, when an audit is conducted and we say, show me, we're going to still say, show me, it's the retained documents that we're seeing. Of course, and that's the whole idea, and when we get to electronic workflows, we'll talk about transactions can be sampled to ensure a process is working satisfactorily. So, as we all know, from 1911, and in actual practice, if you are a third-party registrar or an internal or second party, there is a stage one and a stage two. Let's talk through how this can happen, and we'll look and see how documented information software can let this happen. So here's typically what we expect to see and happen in a stage one. Number one, evaluating customer focus and performance. This is KPIs. Why are we doing that? So we can, look at the risk and prioritize the audit plan and the audit based on the risk. What else do we do? Conduct a document review. Look at the feasibility of the audit. Create the audit plans, and then, of course, create our working documents like turtle diagrams or update checklists. So what we'll do now, let's take a look and see how this is possible. Okay, I'm just going to go right here and step out so I can show you the video. So here is documented information. This happens to be Omnexus software, and let's sign on, and let me try to see if I can successfully pause it in different places to explain. So the auditor signed on, and what you're seeing here is a dashboard for documented information. So what we have done actually in terms of documented information is come up with a management systems virtual platform. So everything is available inside the company. All right. But outside the company, what should we do? So one of the features of the software is to be able to allow a meeting, and you'll see this. This is a meeting that has been planned inside. Okay, before that, let's see here. Let's make sure I am actually in the wrong. Make sure we're in the right one here. So I was actually ahead by one video. Let's go back here and make sure I'm in the right video here. So the auditor's logging on, and this is the agenda for what the company has set up for the third-party auditor. And let's see, we can get that going here. All right, okay, we can read it. It's zoomed in. So here's the agenda that the company, the auditee, has set up for the auditor. The auditor either can live with the auditee, or they've set this information up, the auditor can come in when they want, and they can click the documents to view the KPIs. You see the first line KPI? Next, they can click to see the documentation for the document review. They can fill out the feasibility. They can fill out the audit plans and prepare the work documents through this interface on the auditee's documented information. In fact, this should be a feature that documented information software makes available to the company. So what we're looking at then is the KPIs that were set for the auditor to review to understand what's going wrong, what's the risk, what should the auditor be looking at when they create the audit plan. Okay. Next, we're looking at some documentations that mean the quality manual and the procedures. You can see here the procedures were clicked, or the quality manual can be clicked, and this is enabled through the meeting interface where the auditee has set it up, and the auditor can go in, look at the quality manual, look at the procedures, and fill out a checklist. Let's see if we have the checklist here, reviewing the documents. And of course, what we want to do is to make sure the documents, cannot be, let's see here if I can go back here. That's one of the problems with technology, folks. There's a little bit of a clumsy PPT interface here. So let me see if I can continue. So this should be the feature. I cannot, for the life of me, get this thing to stay. All right. Trying to show documents which should be, if you're setting this up for the auditor, the functionality needs to be there where the documents are view and only and cannot be printed, snipped, saved, or downloaded. All right. And there has to be functionality like that to ensure the confidentiality and security of the documentation. Folks, as a third-party auditor, I know we get much documentation customers send to us because we sign an NDA. But a feature like this, is what we should expect software to do. So here it is. That is the quality manual. And we're also seeing here the document review checklist that is completed by the auditor for part of the stage 1. All right, let's move on then. So that's stage 1. And now, in continuing this discussion on documented information for an audit, the next part of this is stage 2. So when conducting an interview, the audit software can have the total diagrams of process analysis and a checklist that the auditor needs to do the audit. And also, one of the things you'll see we talk about in the very end of is the auditee could also have electronic workflow that really helps speed up and enable these remote audits. Okay, so what are we recommending for conducting a remote audits? At the very minimum, a document information management software and an audit software. And what we're also saying is there's other electronic workflow we can implement. And folks, this is something we should be doing regardless of the times today, where all of us are working in different parts of from our homes, trying to enable work being done. Nothing better than electronic workflows to enable work to be done, but it also makes it very useful in conducting a remote audit. Folks, one of the things I wanted to share with you is the idea of web-based and cloud-based solutions. Now, these are really your only two choices in terms of software you should be looking at. The software you use for documented information, audits, or electronic workflows needs to be web-based or cloud. So what do we mean by that? So let's look here. Hang on one second. There's really, when you talk about web-based software, we're talking about on-premise software, enterprise user license agreements, EULA, EULA. And this software is licensed, it's inside your firewall, and this is what many customers want to see. They want to keep it behind their firewall, and they feel it gives them a greater sense of security. The other choice is cloud-based software, which is hosted remotely. Many of our customers are slowly moving to cloud-based, and it depends about how you feel about the risk. So let's look at some of the pros and cons here of a cloud server versus a remote software. So why do people want to see cloud-based software? No need for on-site hardware. It's so big, savings and expense in hardware costs. Second is they don't have to maintain it, right? And what is the cons? The speed is limited by your internet connection. I think that's the case anyhow inside the organization also. Second is it's easily scalable, meaning you can buy another server because these cloud server companies have large capacities. What is a con on this side? Third-party cloud services, that the person hosting it could have access to your data. Are you worried about that? Third, pros is workers can connect anywhere, any computer, tablet, or smartphone. Cons, if the internet goes down, you're dead. Okay. Pro, data can be backed up on a cloud as regularly as in 15-minute intervals you want. Cons, there's a cost to it. All right. How about then on-premise? On-premise is the other option. So we have this remote server from Google or Amazon or Microsoft, large banks of servers that you can rent as you wish. The other one is on-premise, and there are many IT organizations that want to do on-premise. What is the biggest pro on that is gives you physical control over your server. Let's do all the pros and then we'll look at the cons. Keeps critical data in-house, no third-party access, no need to rely on internet connection for access to your data, unless, of course, you're outside the company and you have to call in. Can be more cost-effective for companies that are not as concerned about uptime. Cons, requires a capital investment. And this is not just looking at hardware, there's also a people investment. So if you are a large organization with a large IT group, on-premise might be your answer. Requires space in your office for rack space. Cons, can be more susceptible to data loss, unlike these remote servers that do backups every 15 minutes. All right, so it's really up to you. If you are a smaller organization without all the IT support you need, maybe your answer is a cloud server. If you're a large organization with want to make sure you have critical data you're afraid will fall into the wrong hands, and you have fear about these large hosting organizations, you can make it on-premise. All right, going on. So in this chapter, what we wanted to do is tell you a little bit about how information should be organized and the functionality you could have. So this is coming out of ISO 10013. It's coming out this year, in fact, in the next month or so, if it's not already out, as a draft international standard. We'll be taking that DIS this year and trying to make it, a final draft and then an IS. Okay, so this is what we have as an organization's documented information, from the scope to the information organized as a quality manual, charts, process maps, all the way to reference documents from outside the company, number 10 there. Folks, immediately don't jump on the team saying quality manuals are no longer necessary. Here, it's a guidance document. Many of your auditees have quality manuals. IATF requires quality manuals. AS 9100 requires quality manuals. What else is part of a documented information? Quality policy, quality objectives, and your records, which are a type of documented information. So this is the information, folks, that's in your auditee's organization, or if you're an auditee, that you need to have software that can really help you, store this and configure this in the best possible way. So what are then some of the functionality we need for documented information software? Content search, configurable approval workflows. Now, folks, in the discussion today, and in my, as I present this, I'm thinking about an enterprise with, 40, 50 different locations. In fact, this morning, I was talking to a logistics company that has 27 different branch offices in North America. Okay, so how should this documentation be? It could be coming from one organization, one branch, but the approval workflow might take it through this branch, the second branch where the process owner is, and corporate where the top manager is. Okay, so the workflows have to be configurable. It has to cover the enterprise. Click, zip, and share documents. Okay, so you're able to zip it and be able to send something to customers or send some things to your colleague. You need to have distribution control. You need to have document access and permission control. You need to be able to get a draft out and have multiple people, comment on your draft. You need to be able to send a form out for, approval, and you should be able to save it and manage it as records. You need to archive documents. You need to have a way to see which are the documents that nobody's ever accessing, and archiving it and bringing it back if you need to. But these kinds of functionalities are important. Ensuring that every 6 months, every year, every 2 years, whatever the period you want to do, that every document needs to have a process owner, and the process owner or owners is triggered for a documentation review to update the documentation if needed. And most importantly, the entire suite needs to have notifications when something needs to be done, whether it is approving a document, whether it is when somebody changes the document you are pinged, or if you're the author or process owner, it notifies you. And then what do you need? You need reminders. And then if it doesn't happen, you need escalation. So that is something that needs to be built in. What else in terms of functionality? Comprehensive integrated management systems, features. I'll explain that to you. In fact, it's one of the ideas, as you know, I'm Mr. Integrated Management Systems. I've been writing about integrated management systems, implementing integrated management systems. And you may or may not know, I have a book with ASQ on integrated management systems. That is, if you want to go to my website, omnex.com, you will see many, many articles and webinars we have done on integrated management systems. But here, the idea is, what should documented information software have for integrated management systems? I'll talk to you about that. The idea of configuring our documentation in multiple levels, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. Think of it as folders if you want, but think of it as levels that you want. You're able to, store your documentation and organize it and share it, track it, review it, approve it. Search effectively, approval workflows that cuts across the organization. Multi-module documentation management. There's many modules. So this is the way I've seen documented information software, whether it's audits that have been done, whether it's problem solving that's been done, corrective action that has been done, whether it's did I say management review already does done, all the documentation, when the work is done, needs to flow into the documented information so it's available for for the organization to view. So they come to one place, one repository where people view things. All right. What else is very key? If there's documents, for some people that you authorize only read only documentation. They cannot download it. They cannot print it. Okay, so all of that should be a feature that the administrator selects. Selective assignment of document for download view rights. The idea of editing, sharing, and collaborating. The idea of accessing from virtually anywhere. Ease of accessibility. User logs, so you know who has gone in when, and if there's any kind of a security issue, you know what's going on, okay? And of course, it needs to do document control. Let's do this. What we'll do, so again, a number of different software that you can look at. There's literally, folks, hundreds of packages out there. What I'll do, what I have full access of, which I've helped design, is this package, called DocPro. So let's take a look then and see from an example. I'll go back to my wonderful PPT interface to show this. And so first, what I want to share with you here, we're signing on again, is this is where I started talking about the idea of a management systems platform with a dashboard in the middle, widgets all the way around, and the access to documentation, okay? This is a feature that is very important, and so it's easy for people to access, and use between, this is where everybody in the company comes in, okay? You can see here at the top, the NPD, New Product Development Dashboard, the concerns dashboard in terms of problems, and improvement dashboard. It's called a Six Sigma dashboard. All right. What else do we have? Let's go and find out. So what we have here is the idea of sites. You can see there's 3 sites here: corporate, Germany, and Thailand. And when you open up Germany, you see actually a number of different, we call this the entity structure. Folks, this is what we'd like to see in documented information. If you have the security, you can click on, whether you click on corporate or Germany or production or purchasing or Thailand, you can go in and see what is the documentation inside that organization. So the ability to manage multiple sites under one roof. Let's move on. What is the other functionality we think is very important? This is that levels, we called it, but in the end of the day, it's a flexible folder structure where you're seeing here, this is the folder structure we talk about for integrated management systems. Here, I can see the QMS documentation. Do you see that at the very top here? You can down below, one below, you see the EMS documentation. In the middle, you see the integrated management systems where, so this is the ability to view the same documentation in different views, okay? A QMS view, because these are shared QMS and EMS documents. And when you come to the integrated management system, you see it as an integrated management systems When you go to the EMS, you just see through the EMS lens. All right, let's see when you go into an integrated management system whether you can tell which is integrated, which is not integrated. Okay, so here it is. You're seeing the EMS org chart, EMS procedures, and if I click, I can tell by the highlight of yellow that these are the documents shared with the QMS, okay? And the rest are EMS specific alone in my organizational, in my table of contents. And the idea of assigning folders and permissions by sites, groups, users. In fact, it's got to be really easy whether you're only giving them a view-only access or certain confidential information, no access, whether we give them a download access, whether we give them a print access. If you go to the right, you'll see all these different accesses possible and the ability to assign access as you please. Let's continue here. And of course, the ability to have somebody like a corporate user to be able to view all documentation, not just procedures, all documentation in the enterprise, okay? Of course, it's nothing so great about corporate users. It just means a class of users who are looking over all the documentation to be able to see something. Or somebody from Germany can only see their selected procedures. This is operations, and they can only see four, in our little example. Or in this case, they, for auditors, they can set it up that the auditors can only view the level 1 and level 2 information. All right. Let's go back now and continue with the all right. The next chapter is electronic workflow. So what I first covered is I talked about, stage 1 and stage 2 and how to handle it in software. Then we talked about documented information. We talked also about, the idea of, you could have two different types of packages, a web-based package in your premise, and also a package which is on a that you can share, that is on a cloud. Okay, and then we talked about functionality and types of functionality. Now we're in the tail end of our presentation here. We'll talk about electronic workflows. This is a concept, by the way, again, that the ISO 10013 and really something yours truly added in to the ISO 10013. That's in a DIS, coming out in a DIS shortly, that automated workflows are processes that can manage, control the flow of activities in a defined sequence of tasks with predetermined human intervention. When executing the activity, context-specific drop-down menus or pop-ups can guide the user in completing the transaction. Automated workflows may enhance process consistency. For example, in this logistics company, I've worked with many distribution and shipping companies in the past. Believe it or not, some of the biggest problems that they have is somebody taking an order and transcribing it incorrectly into the shipping order. Would you believe that? Of course, you have to mistake proof it. You got to mistake proof it, or you should be able to take the customer order, which is electronic, and automatically put it into the shipping order. But these automated workflows can enhance process consistency, number one, by standardizing the way everybody performs, and then looking at where the problems are, mistake proofing it. And of course, what it does is enhances performance through the workflow design and can result in automated decision making through the analysis of data. as this electronic workflow, goes through the different transactions, automatically data is being collected, and you can determine what kind of dashboards you want to do continual improvement. So here's a list of key electronic workflows from risk and opportunity management all the way to continual improvement. It looks like a lot, but this is coming out of the high-level structure. But in the end of the day, folks, if you can see the screen, and I did this just to show the high-level structure and then the modules that you can have. This is, in fact, the solution stack from Omnex's software. We have 11 different modules that satisfy all the high-level structure. And if it's designed in such a manner, this one workflow of documented information will manage all the documented information, whether it's for QMS, EMS, health and safety, social responsibility, IT security. I don't know if you're, excuse me, if you follow many of my webinars, you do know today, in terms of best-in-class management, integrated management systems, I say it's QMS, EMS, OSHA's, social responsibility, and IT security, 27001. Right? With cybersecurity being a big problem, and all these nicely integrate because it's got the high-level structure in it. And of course, you should be able to have one workflow that manages all this documentation. Second, internal audits. Third, performance management. We jump all the way, managing suppliers, inspection control, problem solving. All of these should have one workflow that takes care of the entire high-level structure. So very doable, very manageable, and today absolutely necessary. So when electronic workflows are added, third, second, and first-party audits can be performed remotely with great ease. Okay, reports and dashboards help the auditor and the auditee easily communicate performance data. And in today's environment, folks, with everybody working in different parts, working from home, you need this electronic workflow versus emails, phone calls, spreadsheets, and so on to really manage the work. So not only is this important for remote auditing, but absolutely important for today's work. All right. So we're going to finish up in this this webinar by talking about audit software functionality. So if you look at audit software, there are three parts to it. One is audit scheduling. Second is conducting the audit. That's where we actually conduct the audit. First part is scheduling. Third one is a non-conformance management, and they have it as non-conformance management and opportunity OFI management are the two flows you see in the bottom. All right, but relatively three different workflows. So let me go back and show you a workflow of non-conformance management. So audit software really needs to enhance this transfer of information between the auditor and auditee. So here we see we're signing on again. This is the view the auditor gets. They get to see all the audits that they have performed. Okay, it's color coded for various things. The red may be an indicator that I'm a little bit behind in my tasks, and you can see here you have all the corrective actions that you have to do on the left-hand side. You can see on the right-hand side, so in terms of all the different things you have to perform, if you click here, oops, hang on one second. This is one of the prompts of using this PPT software here. If you click here, and you can see that clicking on the corrective action, you can see the corrective action that they have to perform for a certain audit. So that's what you're seeing here. The list of corrective actions we have to work on, and this is for the site Mercury Corporate. And let's continue on. And what you're seeing here is there are two types of cars here. And just to show, you can respond to, as an auditee, you can respond to the non-conformance in multiple different approaches. Sometimes people come up with all these different types of ways they want to offer. So two standard approach, a corrective action report car approach, and an 8D approach. So let's take a look and see what kind of functionality we can expect to see here between the two. So this is a picture, pardon me. Let's see if we can get there fast. This is a picture of the non-conformance management, and this, we see the auditee's response, and you also see if they have tools, what they did with the tools. All right, this is the classic 8D response to corrective actions. Many people want to do and look at the different root causes. Here is a CAR approach, also using different if they want. Okay, and really just showing the cause and effect diagram if they want to use tools like that, and how an audit non-conformance goes between the auditee and auditors, and finally for a closeout. All right, so that's the last little flow demo that I wanted to do. Let's go back and finish up our presentation. And I have a little problem here getting back to my screen because it's blocked. Okay, that's what I had to do. I had to do a click there. Let's continue on. And so what we'll do is finish up with this thought about remote auditing software. And when you do remote audits, of course, a good friend of the auditor and the audit team and the auditees is you can use Teams. Becoming very popular today is Microsoft Teams. Of course, you can do GoTo, you can do WebEx, you can do Zoom. There's a number of other tools out there, folks. And just look at the amount of functionality you have. And typically your audit management software, I talked to you about Audit Pro that we use, integrates right into these packages. In fact, when you do a video, it comes right into your, through the software into your meeting. So here is what we have done. We have done a number of audits today, and really, if you want to do your tour, and really the tour is not as important as a shop floor tour and the idea of the auditor virtually auditing manufacturing. Of course, we do on the desktop, we do the process flow control plans, or FMEAs, and then we follow that into the line, and you don't have to use anything more than, let's say, an up-to-date iPhone or Android takes incredibly good pictures. If you do want to use a GoPro, you can, but we found that the iPhone 10 or above works really well. Here are some pictures in terms of we're conducting the audit using software. This is the tour that's being done with the iPhone integrated into our audit, where the auditor is talking to the auditee remotely through a earpiece, and that earpiece can be transferred to the operator, where you can actually ask the questions you want to ask as you would do in real life. And maybe, you know, it might be very quiet where you are remotely, so you can ask good questions. Conducting the interview, and this is a picture of the auditors looking at some of the data for the auditee using virtual technology. All right. So that brings us all the way to the conclusion here. Folks, whether we like it or not, the world we have has changed. And, it's going to go to an extreme. And then, of course, life will come back a little bit to more of a normal. But remote auditing is with us here to stay. Just like we are doing, training, virtual training now. And when we come back to a normal situation, Omnex has decided that we will, continue doing both the on-site training, and it's being transmitted virtually. So if you ask me, with all the travel costs and all the time wasted, remote audits today are here to stay. If they can be done just as effectively as face-to-face audits, and I believe they can, the first few will not be as successful as the rest. And you can imagine people like us will do training on how auditors can do a good job of, remote audits. Organizations need to adopt web-based or cloud-based documented information management system software and audit software that will greatly enable the remote auditing experience. And we recommend electronic workflows to help achieve this collaboration inside the company, that of course makes it very easy for remote auditing. So if you're going to make this decision for documented information software, audit software, and electronic flow software, you need to carefully think through the functionality you need and implement that. And then, of course, you need to have something like GoTo or Zoom or WebEx that can be useful tools to help you conduct the actual interview. With that, just a little bit about what Omnex does. We do everything from gap analysis to implementation to certification. And some of the books that I have written, and the classrooms that we have. In fact, we have taken on, many features. We did this before the lockdown, and our state is still locked down, where we put in place how to run what we call a safe classroom. By the way, the accolades we're getting for the virtual remote training and audits that we're doing. And I believe, just something we like to think about, that we're a company of thought leaders and writers of standards. All right, I'll just stop right here. With that, let me turn things back, Mike, to you. Folks, thank you very much for being a part of this webinar. I hope you found this, that you got lots of information and detail of how you can embark on your journey of remote auditing, either as a third-party auditor or as an internal auditor, or maybe you're listening to this webinar as a auditee and somebody managing your audit management systems and your documented management systems. And we really think you need to think about an electronic solution for your needs. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Well, and thank you, Chad Kymal, for that look at setting up management systems for remote auditing. And that concludes this presentation.